All right, good evening, and we'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you and welcome to the Tuesday, December 6, 2022 meeting of the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, jump into tonight's roll call. Commissioner Bowie's not present. Commissioner Ingert.
Present.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Present.
Vice Chair Fizer.
Present.
Commissioner Manser.
Present.
Secretary Peterman.
Present.
Commissioner Kia.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present.
And Chairman Wiggins is here. We have no personal appearances scheduled this evening, so that moves us into our consent agenda, where we have one item, the approval of minutes from the November 15, 2022 meeting. Do we have any discussion on the topic? And I'll note for the record, I'll give him a second here that Commissioner Bowie's walking in, so I'll give him a quick second to get seated. Commissioner Bowie? Welcome,
Present.
sir. Present. All right, so we are into our consent agenda, approval of minutes from November 15, 2022. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of the item.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Faulkner.
I move that we accept consent agenda.
Thank you.
I second it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Faulkner, second by Vice Chair Fizer to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? And abstentions? Very good.
Was that 9?
Yes, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 702. Thank you.
72.
All right. We have no unfinished business, so we will move into item 7, new business. We have 2 cases tonight. The first is case 22033, the estates at Knoll Creek, second plat, final plat. This time I would invite the applicant to come forward and present your case, please.
So actually, we'll have Mr. Lewis, who is representing the applicant. He'll be sitting in the audience and just available for questions. It'll go right in the staff report if you...
Very good. Staff, please.
Tonight you have in front of you a final plat approval for the estates at Knoll Creek, second plat. This is actually just east of the existing Knoll Creek, which is there off of North Prairie Lane. Current zoning for this property is R1. Tract size is going to be 20.221 acres. The one thing I wanted to point out that was different than the preliminary plat, originally there was 40 lots proposed for this, what phase this would be for, and there was only a 1 lot difference, so this is only 39 lots that they'll be doing. Growth management plan identifies this area as appropriate for low density residential, while the major street plan identifies Prairie Lane as a major collector. Just a couple things actually to note in the history. Originally, there was a preliminary plat that had expired on May the 10th of 2006, but just recently, this body had approved an additional preliminary plat that kind of gave approval for an additional 76 lots, so that would make it a 3-phase overall development, including what exists today. A couple of comments. The water is actually in Water District 3, so it will not be serviced by the city. Another difference that we looked at from the original preliminary plat showed a Normandy Drive stub street that would be on the south side. After looking at the land to the south, which is unincorporated Cass County, a lot of that land is in the floodplain, and so just didn't feel that it was necessary to have that stub street as originally proposed, and so you'll see just an additional lot as opposed to a 100-foot section of street. One additional item that as staff and the applicant were working, you'll notice on the plat in front of you that there's a 60-foot right-of-way for Halls Creek Avenue. Looking at the existing Halls Creek Avenue, it shows just a 50-foot right-of-way, and didn't think that that there would be really a reason to have that 60-foot right-of-way. So staff is actually going to have a condition of approval for that, and just that the applicant will submit a revised plat just showing a 50-foot right-of-way instead of a 60. With that being said, staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission accept staff proposed findings of fact and forward case 22033 with the following condition of the applicant revise the final plat to show Halls Creek Avenue as a 50-foot right-of-way instead of a 60, and submit back to the city before recording of the plat. This concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. One quick question, probably more just for trying to remember from previous purposes. So Citadel Place, that road there, when we previously had looked, wasn't it maybe going to cross more at the center? I assume maybe just discussions with combined or nearby landowners.
Correct.
Caused a change in that.
The applicant had discussions with both adjacent property owners and had found a way that they could make that work for Citadel Place.
So there are, moving forward, there's no concerns connecting those two pieces, that to Alexander Creek, though, with that?
That's correct. And Alexander Creek would actually come forward for their fourth plat to kind of show how that all is going to connect.
Very good. Any members of the commission have questions for the staff, or if necessary, the applicant? Yes, sir. Mr. Faulkner.
Just one. So Mr. Eppert, you've already touched on the deletion of Normandy Drive, and I guess as I was going through this over the weekend, I was just wondering whether that was a decision on the part of the developer or city staff or city engineering, and I'm getting the impression that that decision that we didn't need Normandy was actually made by city. Is that correct?
That is correct. After the city looked at it, there was a lot of discussion of future development as we're going through the comprehensive plan and seeing how that could look one day. And after having the floodplain shown, I mean, there's a very small section of that property to the south that could actually be developed.
Okay, and I assume that Mr. Salisbury, Mr. Crass, and city engineering was involved in that as well?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other members of the commission have any questions of staff? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item, please.
Chairman,
Sir.
I'd like to make a motion that the commission accept the staff proposed findings of fact and forward case number 22033, the estates at Knoll Creek, second final plat, lots 57 through 95, and tracks D and E to the city council with a recommendation of approval.
Need the condition?
Would you like to add that condition regarding the 50-foot right-of-way?
With the condition that they address the 50-foot right-of-way.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Kia, second by Commissioner Faulkner. I'm going to borrow your screen since my stuff died again. Motion to recommend the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the staff proposed finding of fact and forward case 22033, the estates at Knoll Creek, second final plat, lots 57 through 95, and tracks D and E to the City Council with recommendation for approval, including revising the final plat to reflect the 50-foot right-of-way. Any final discussion of the item? Seeing none, all in favor? Passes unanimously, 9-0. Thank you. That will take us to our second and final case of this evening, which is case 22027, Mr. Handyman Site Plan. Would the applicant please like to come forward and present your case, or will staff be presenting?
Good evening.
Evening.
Never done this before, so you tell me what you need from me.
Usually we just ask that you please state your name and address for the record, and then just give us a brief overview of the project.
Okay, John Bruflat, Mr. Handyman. Need my address, you say?
Please.
Home address?
Home or business?
Okay, well, currently, I don't know what the address this will be. This will be right on, do you have an address yet over there, Justin, or? Okay.
Home would be fine just for the...
Home address, okay, 504 East Ash Street in Raymore.
Great.
And what we're proposing here is building basically an office with also a warehouse space for some of our tools and construction materials. So there won't be things outside of the building, it'll be all inside. Might be some vans, we have marked handyman vans that our technicians drive. Usually take them home, but we will have some occasionally in the office area. And what we do is we offer home repair services, 2 hours, 2 days is kind of our claim to fame. So we do a lot of small repairs. Maybe somebody needs new garbage disposer put in, light, ceiling light, maybe they have some electrical issues, some light plumbing, deck work, things like that. So we are not really a contractor per se, but we do home repair and some home remodeling. And so we're proposing tonight is to have a office here in Raymore. We're currently in Lee Summit. My wife and I, Allison, are the owners, and we live in Raymore. We want to bring that to the community here, and so that's why we're proposing to build this building for us.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions of the applicant before we move on to the staff report? All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
I'll turn
thank
it
you.
over to staff for their report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bruflat. Okay, tonight you have in front of you a request for site plan approval for Mr. Handyman. The location of the property is east of North Madison Street and south of Pine Street. The current zoning for the property is C2 General Commercial District. Tract size is approximately 0.73 acres. The growth management plan identifies this area as appropriate for commercial development, and the major street plan identifies North Madison Street as a major arterial and Pine Street as a minor collector. A couple things that I wanted to highlight for just a property history. On April 25th of 2022, City Council approved the rezoning of the subject property from C2 to R3A and C2. The Planning Commission then voted to approve the site plan for the multifamily portion of the proposed project, and that was on August 2nd, 2022. And then City Council voted to approve the final plat for Oak Ridge Farms' fourth plat in August of 2022 as well. A couple things to highlight within the comments is parking. With this being a commercial use, there's one parking space required for every 300 square feet. With this building being proposed 4,000 square feet, that would require 14 parking spaces, and they provided 16, as well as one ADA space that was required and provided that as well. When it comes to landscaping, 20% of the lot was required, and actually the applicant met it at 20%. The only additional thing I wanted to touch on was the landscaping for the east side of the property. A type A screening is required, as that would abut the property that's zoned R3A for the multifamily development that is currently being mass graded right now. Pedestrian access is actually, there's an existing sidewalk along Madison, and they would just be extending that towards the building and then providing a striped pedestrian crossing. And then fire also reviewed this, and a truck turning movement was provided, and it was determined that Paw Paw Road, which is actually going to be the private road, would connect the east and west parking spaces, and that provides what the fire district's requiring. One other additional item for the fire district is this would, if approved tonight, a separate building permit would be required through the fire department as well as through the city. Site access is kind of already mentioned from North Madison Street primarily, but then if somebody from Oak Ridge 4 wanted to come up to the site, they could actually use the private road of Paw Paw Road. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the staff proposed findings of fact and approve case number 22027, Mr. Handyman site plan, subject to the following 13 conditions. This concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Do any members of the commission have any questions for either staff or the applicant? Yes, sir, Mr. Faulkner.
Question for staff, just quickly. So, Mr. Eppert, on, I think, page 14, and this would be the 7th condition, if I'm counting right, down second bullet under prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
It says 2 of the accessible parking spaces shall be served by an access aisle. And you already stated earlier in the report, only 1 is required and 1 is shown, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So can we change that condition to 1?
We can.
Okay,
change
great,
that to 1.
thank
Yep.
you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? If not, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item, please.
Commissioner,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chairman,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
So Paw Paw Road, you mentioned is a private road. Is it going to be paved and then turn into dirt at one point, or what's kind of the plan there?
So it should be all paved. This would be, it would actually provide a shared access point to, if you remember correctly, with the Oak Ridge 4 final plat, there was actually a vacant lot to the north of this. That would actually be the primary access point for future development as well. So this should all be paved.
And then it dead ends, though it doesn't actually go into the division.
No, it will actually connect into the multifamily section.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then for turning, is there going to be a right turn lane, or is it just going to be right off Madison for this?
It would be right off Madison.
Okay.
Any final or additional questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item, please.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the staff proposed findings of fact and approve case number 22027, Mr. Handyman Site Plan, subject to the following 13 conditions. Do I need to mention the adjustment? Including the adjustment from 2 to 1 in, I don't know what number,
Handicap, from 2 to 1 handicap stalls or something.
2 to 1 handicap stalls.
I'll second.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Manser, second by Commissioner Urquia to accept the staff proposed findings of fact and approve case 22027, Mr. Handyman's site plan, subject to the following 13 conditions, as well as the edit from 2 handicap parking stalls to 1. Any discussion on the topic? If not, all in favor? Seeing all hands raised, that will pass unanimously, 9-0. Thank you. Moving along, we will jump now, Mr. Zur, to the City Council report.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to provide the City Council report for this evening. Since your last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, there has been one City Council meeting where legislative action has taken place. At the course of that meeting, there were 4 items that I'll report to you this evening. Those 4 included the reappointment of the chairman for continuing service on the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as reappointment of Commissioner Secretary Peterman. So welcome back, both of you. Also included in that evening was the approval of the Elite Fence Final Plat Lot 1. This was previously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on November 15th by a unanimous vote of 7-0. This is a replat of Johnston Industrial Park that will create a new lot, basically 611 East Walnut, and allow for elite fencing to go into that location. The other item that was approved, again unanimously, was the Starbucks final plat at Foxwood Plaza, previously approved again on November 15th, 2022 by the Planning and Zoning Commission through unanimous vote. Both of those were approved by the City Council by unanimous vote as well. That would conclude staff's City Council report.
Mr. Mayor, anybody else have anything else to add to the City Council report?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eppert or Mr. Kress?
Thank you, sir. The only thing that I have for is, so on December 20th, we currently have no business items. At this point, I want to just make sure that I can leave it open, but at this point, I don't think there's going to be anything. There's a couple of final plats out there that we've been waiting on, and so we're just waiting on the applicant to pull the trigger. And so as of right now, it's not going to be scheduled, but it could change. So I'll pass it over to David for additional.
Thank you, Mr. Eppert. The only thing I had to add, it will not make it to the commission at this point, but the notice was sent out this week, and so I wanted to make the commission aware. Mr. Eppert and I were contacted. We've been working for a couple of weeks now for the lot that is adjacent to the approved Starbucks that the commission saw here just a couple of weeks ago. That particular area is located within an existing incentive TIF district with the city. There's a number of agreements that were agreed upon when that TIF district was approved. Staff was contacted a couple of months ago regarding a proposed car wash that would like to purchase the remaining area in that site. As many of you may know, we don't collect sales tax on car washes within the city, and therefore it's classified as a non-sales tax generating business. That specific agreement requires specific city approval for a non-sales tax generating business to go in that TIF district. And so we did schedule a good neighbor meeting with the neighbors around that. Staff has some concerns about the impact of that potential use adjacent to those residential homes. And so this is just a preliminary step to gather some feedback to generate what our recommendation will be moving forward. But since we did publish that notice in the weekly report and the notices were sent out, I wanted the commission to be aware of that in case any questions are asked. If they are successful in getting the council's sign off on that agreement, their next step would be a site plan with the commission. But time will tell, depending on the outcome of that meeting and what those results are, whether or not they do decide to move forward with that next step in the process. But just wanted to make the commission aware that that request was filed, in case you all have any questions in the future.
Real quick, are we talking the sliver that we were debating about, or are we talking about the lot that's behind it between the rental, the
So
apartments?
there's a lot that is in between essentially the residential fencing and where Starbucks would be.
Yeah, where that big, like 15-foot
Yep.
wall of land falls off?
And if you'll remember with the final plat, it was like the L-shaped remnant tract. They would actually purchase that entire L shape. So it'll go along the south side of what Starbucks would be as
Okay,
well.
so the narrow tract, and then there's a wider rectangle to the south?
Correct.
Very good. Any other questions for city staff on their report?
Yeah, you mentioned concern. Is the concern like waste from the car wash or the noise?
So there's two areas of concern, I guess. One would be the use in general. I don't know who on this commission was on the commission when that project was approved, but the proximity to the residential homes right there, just with the nature of a car wash being somewhat noisy with vacuum cleaners and so forth. So we've been working with them on how they would intend to address that if it got to that point in the project. The major concern we're working through right now is the impact on the TIF district itself. Culver's, which is right now the only existing business there, in addition to what Starbucks will add in the future. Both of those businesses pursued that development based on the assumptions of them being able to take advantage of that TIF district and some of the reimbursements that they'd be able to take advantage of. All that is based on sales tax being generated out of that development. And so the concern here is how they would make up for the loss and what would be tax revenue that would be able to be reimbursed to those other developments as they incur costs. So the developer has proposed a couple different options that they would be interested in pursuing if it got to that point. So right now, the concern we're working through is the impact on the TIF district, but we would still have concerns on the adjacency of that use to that subdivision as well.
Interesting. Any other questions or comments for staff? Have anything from? Nope. All right. That will take us to public comment. I don't see anybody in here, but if anybody is out in the wings, please come forward. Seeing nobody, we will move into commission member comments. I will start with Mr. Manser tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I just
First
kind of
up, I'd like to thank staff.
easy. Commissioner Ingert.
I had the opportunity today to drive by Whataburger as the manager was training an employee how to pick up trash in the parking lot. And I rolled down my window because I wanted Grand Poobah to know this firsthand. And they said, we're opening on, and the manager turns to the young man and says, what day? And he says, the 13th. Yeah, we're opening up on the 13th, so please come back on the 13th. So it should be open by then.
I thought it was Monday the 12th.
We all did.
Is it the 12th or the 13th, staff?
They may be planning a soft opening on December 12th. I'll have to circle back with the development group on that question.
Okay.
I did see cars going through the drive-through this past weekend.
Would you like to go ahead? You can, Mr. Akia.
Sure, thanks.
Please.
Yeah. Well, thanks, staff, for everything you guys do. I want to apologize for my absence last meeting. I forgot that we changed the meeting time. I'm glad I could make it on time this time. Hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and hope that the staff and my fellow commissioners have a wonderful holiday. If we do not get back together on the 20th, enjoy your Christmas and New Year's.
Mr. Bowie, send it down your way, sir.
Thank you, staff. As well, the new time change, 6 o'clock. I don't know, we haven't had any follow-up on that, or I think it's good. It's nice to be home by 7 o'clock sometimes. So, but I appreciate you guys, all the work you do, and happy holidays, everybody, as well. Thanks.
Commissioner Faulkner.
Thank you to staff, and it's good to see everyone tonight.
Secretary Peterman.
I don't have anything. I'm glad the mayor figured out the plug-in on the Christmas lights.
That was, yeah. 3, 2, 1.
So is it me? Funny story.
Well, I might as
there.
well. I mean, it might as well give you a chance
Funny
to.
story there.
A little
So
rebuttal there. if
my
you would.
youngest son, who has a quick sense of humor, So they flipped the switch, it didn't come on. I could hear him in the backgrounds. It's a real beaut, Clark, as in Christmas Vacation, which I got a kick out of. But the funny thing about it was that Eddie from the Parks Department came up and fixed it. So we had Cousin Eddie come up and fix the lights there. But happy holidays to everyone. I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Vice Chair Pfizer.
I would also like to thank staff, and I was at the tree lighting, and aside from that little mix-up there, I thought it was beautiful. I think the new tree looks great, and I encourage everybody to go out and look at all the other trees that are out there as well, if you get a chance.
Yeah, likewise. It was a great event. There were tons of people out there. I don't think I went last year, but a couple years ago I went, and I mean, the numbers obviously continue to grow. So great event. Thanks for everybody from city staff and Parks and Rec and everybody else who contributes to that. Thank you, staff, as always, for everything that you guys do. I did have a kind of a random question. I don't know if this would, something to talk about offline or something to talk about at a future point, but having driven by some of our projects in the past, and we approve things that have, for instance, like type A screenings and stuff, and I'm just kind of curious what we have in place, or maybe if we don't have something in place, something that maybe needs to be in place regarding either expectations of deliverables for screenings based on what we have in here, or if there's a timeline of expectations. I've driven by some things, and you drive by, and we're gonna have type A screening to screen this project from this residential or this school or whatever, and you drive by and it's like 3 Charlie Brown Christmas trees that'll take 75 years to even reach what is supposedly our minimum height of things, and caliper trees, are supposed to be 2 to 2.5 inch trees, and they're little twigs that could blow over in the wind. So I didn't know, maybe it's a different offline topic, or maybe something for a future education opportunity. But we have a lot of beautiful trees, and unfortunately we do see lots of them get cut down for some of our projects, and then they get replaced with little to nothing. So personally, I would love to see us to push back a little bit more on some of our developers as far as expectations, or maybe we just update our code to reflect, hey, we're serious about trees, and either keep them or spend the money to put something better in. So yeah, I just was driving back from something with one of my kids the other day, and I was really disappointed just to see after somebody spent so much money on a project, they basically, and maybe we don't follow up on what that is and make them do more in the future. But maybe that's something you can address tonight. I didn't mean to get into anything in particular since we do have a short meeting, but we can always address it, or you and I can talk offline too. I don't know if it's necessary, but.
No, I think that's a great question. So Mr. Eppert and I, after a site plan is approved, I mean, it could be a day, it could be a month before that project actually starts construction. But we do work with Mr. Warner, our building official, who is more involved with the project after it's approved by the commission too. We monitor those things of when they go in. In some cases, screening is required before a certificate of occupancy can be issued. Sometimes it's based on something else within that phase of development. It really depends on the project. But Mr. Eppert and I do work with Mr. Warner and conduct a site visit, and we essentially will sign off that what was planted meets what was approved by the commission. The important thing to note is that the screening requirements are based on the full growth of the tree, which does take time. Every now and again, they will plant trees that do die, and we do keep an eye on that. They're usually required to give us a warranty of 1 to 2 years, depending on the specifics of the project. So we generally have that time frame to go back and make them replace that screening if it does in fact die. Be very similar to what we do with like a yard tree in a residential development. But if that was something the commission wanted to explore in the future, we could by all means compare what our requirements are to other cities and provide that to the commission as a comparison.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious. I don't know if anybody else. I mean, I don't know. Just some, and it's tough because at full growth. Well, so 30 years from now, when something is dilapidated, it finally has its own, canopy or cover or whatever, and I don't know. So I'd be interested in learning a little bit more, or what it takes to maybe, push ourselves to a higher level of expectation for our developers too. Either way, that is all I have. Thank you so much. I hope everybody did have a great Thanksgiving. If we don't see you guys on the 20th, we will see you guys in the new year. So have a happy, safe holiday season. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Kia, second by Commissioner Manser to adjourn. All in favor? Assuming no discussion, we are adjourned 9-0. Thank you.